everyone, and welcome to Horror Night Oasis, a radio show where we discuss all the latest movies and news from the world of horror. Joining me tonight, as always, is my co-host Ian. Ian, are you alive?
Maybe.
Yeah. Ian's over here turning into a were-chicken from eating spicy noodles, and he's foaming out the mouth. Oh, it's always fun. It's always fun. One way or another. But we're here to continue on our Fall of Beast Feast marathon, where we're diving deep into the werewolf subgenre, and it's not really been off to a great start, I would say. It's kind of bumpy, not the best, but that's how these marathons turn out. And luckily, there was one that honestly I think it just showed up this past week or over last week. And it was in the new release section, and like, okay, this sounds interesting, because there's not really many that touch upon that sort of idea for a werewolf. It's been done for like zombies, and it's been done for vampires, but not really one for werewolves, and that's one I kind of wanted to, like, this sounds pretty cool. And that film we're going to be discussing tonight is First Moon. And First Moon follows, let me get her name, Jessica. And they say she's a waitress on the synopsis, but I don't. And so she's working at this restaurant, but that's not neither here nor there. That's a little bit later on. But she is imprisoned by these werewolf hunting priests, led by Father Torquemada and Sister. Let me get these names are out there. Sister Elise and Brother Thomas, and then there's another brother character that he's just there for like the muscle, basically. And so what's going on is that there's a werewolf, or a guy named Caleb, and he is a werewolf. And he's going out and he's having a bunch of sex, basically. And basically these priests are tracking down all of his partners and trying to exorcise them in a way, before the next moon, basically. And if they don't turn, or they don't agree to turn, or something, basically something in that light, from where they're doing these acts on them, because they're doing various violent acts towards the individuals that Caleb has had sex with, and they basically kill them. And so Jessica, again, she is the next in line for the priests, and so she gets kidnapped, brought into this this warehouse building, and Sister Elise is telling her, is asking these questions. How many partners have you been, sexually active with? And, of course, Jessica's a little bit shook up because she's just been kidnapped, and they're asking about her sex life. And she says, they go back and forth, kind of bicker back and forth. And she goes on and says 3, and says, have you seen this guy? And she holds up a picture, and it's of Caleb, and he's driving in a car. He has a hood on. And so they talk back and forth, and basically the whole rundown that I just went over is that, again, they're trying to put an end to this line of bloodline, basically, this werewolf curse. And so Jessica is like locked up in a cage, and so throughout most of the film, they're doing, again, these acts of violence towards her, like putting a cross or stabbing her in her hand, whipping her back in a sense, or making these markings in her back, And at the same time, when she's locked up in her little jail, her little cage, she's having these, I wouldn't say daydreams or hallucinations, but she's able to converse in a dreamlike scenario with other people that are also infected with the lycanthropy curse, who had sex with Caleb. So basically, Caleb fucks anyone. I'll just say that, man or woman. He's straight to the point. Just like, whatever, I'm fucking. That's kind of funny, honestly. Like, who cares, basically. And so she's talking to Monique, and I think Matt is the other one. And I think Matt is also the son of Father Torquemada, I think, or because they do say son later on into it, towards the conclusion of the film. And so basically, they're doing these acts of torture on Jessica to subside the curse before the next full moon or the first moon.
Right.
And and she's like dealing with all these memories of like how she got to there, and because she got the scratches on her shoulder, which I guess that's how it was like transmitted, but they also say it's actually through sex, so it's kind of a mixed bag there. The one thing about the film, and it's fairly dominant, it's a very dialogue heavy movie. It's one of those you have to pay attention to the dialogue and all the little intricate little details throughout all the characters and Caleb and the preachers, not the preachers, but the priests, and like all the other little small moments here and there that don't really add up to much, but you have to, in the whole bigger picture, it does. And overall, it's not a bad movie. I mean, for the marathon so far, it's leaps and bounds against everything that we've watched. Yeah. Because it's definitely just one of those that's just like, it's a really talkative, and you really have to pay attention to it. And it's one of those, it's a very slow burn, because you're not, as like, again, last week with Unnatural, where like it was a werewolf movie for like 2 minutes, and then it's just vampires. Like this one, it's an underlying tone of a werewolf movie, and then you have the last 20 minutes where you actually have the transformation of the werewolf. So it's a very slow build up until the actual transformation of the werewolf coming into effect. And overall, again, it's not a bad watch. It's fairly competent and made. It honestly, when I was watching it, it kind of reminded me of like Martyrs, but instead of like, because it's also people wanting someone to, in Martyr, she's tortured to the brink of death so she could know if there's a God or not, and there's that whole cult of wanting to know that stuff. And so it's like sort of like that, but with a werewolf, and like they don't really go full on like they do in Martyrs. I mean, it's very subdued in the first moon, but it just kind of reminded me of that a little bit. What's the other one? Relapse. Was it Relapse? It has I think Numi Rapace in it, and she gets tortured throughout most of the movie. But it's sort of similar to that ordeal, where like it's just tortured, and she's like, again, she gets locked up in the cage, and then she goes off into the other world, and she's like seeing all the history and the backstory, like what eventually got her to that place, and like all the little storylines that converge in and out. And then like there's all the other characters, of course, and the father, he is a one hard-assed priest. he does not care about your feelings or anything. He's just gonna he's gonna kick your ass. He's just like, no, we're not having this. I'm not dealing with no bullshit. I'm gonna beat your ass to death if you're not gonna listen to me. And that's what he does throughout most of the movie. He's just a hard-edged priest. Sister Elise, she's sort of not really quiet, but she's like she's there for like the comfort character. You know, it's like she's able to sort of talk to Jessica and some stuff like that. And then you have um, brother Thomas, who I think is like friends with Jessica, and he got kind of pulled in to the priesthood in a sense. Like I said, it's very dialogue heavy, so you really have to pay attention to it. And again, a lot of people is going to look at it like, yeah, it's a very slow film, and it is. I'm not going to lie, it's slow for again for like an hour and 38 minutes. It's a very underhanded slow movie, but it does keep your attention because of like the interesting dialogue and just like some of the character arcs and like how it does things, like Jessica going to the other plane when she's in the cage with the sheet over top of it, and some of the other characters that get involved or integrated into the story. It's like again, it's not reliant on the werewolf. Like I said, it's there just to keep things moving forward until the eventual transformation of the werewolf, and I like that about it. It's nothing, like I said, it's not perfect by any means, and it does have some issues here and there, where you kind of lose track, and you can pay attention to it, but again, it's just too dialogue centric for most of it, and there's a lot of information coming at you, and it's just like one of those where you're just like you're paying attention, but you do zone out sometimes because you're just like dialogue, dialogue, dialogue. This long dialogue between the preacher, the priest, and then Jessica and all her friends. It's just like Caleb's character, and then that subplot with him trying to hook up the other priest. So there's a lot of just like subplots within the big major plot of Jessica trying to not transition into a werewolf. But again, it's perfectly fine. Honestly, it's one of the better ones that I've watched, and especially for the marathon and the previous marathon. But Ian, I'll let you give your thoughts, and then we'll go back and forth.
All right. This movie was pretty interesting. I like psychological werewolf movies. I learned that by watching. The first time I watched one was Michael Taylor Pritt's movie, and I feel like this would be a very good that would be a good back-to-back feature with this. It was really dialogue heavy, and if I would have known that going into it, I probably would have tried to watch it like earlier when I wasn't kind of like half dead from work, where I could actually like pay attention, because there's just so much details that are going on, and like honestly, it was a pretty compelling movie. Like it made sense. I was like, okay, this is a crazed hunter who, priest who's trying to get rid of evil. And I felt like they did a pretty good job explaining the lore and how they pass it, like how the werewolf thing gets
like there's a baptism because they have like the pool of water in the tub, and like they use that to like baptize you, or aka drown you.
Yeah, and it was really interesting. Like, how they were trying to cure you, but at the same time they were just really just killing people, and like how everything goes at the end of the movie, I was like, oh, this movie is like, it actually went where I was hoping it would go. I just wish it would have went a little bit sooner. But I think the biggest downside is of this film was how much talking there was. I wish there was just a little bit more werewolf, but at the same time, like, just for what it is and what it was supposed to do, I think it did a great job at that. I just personally like seeing more werewolves.
Yeah,
but I get it. It's psychological. It's a
Yeah, they're basically poking the bear. They're poking the wolf until it eventually bites them. That's the whole concept of the movie, of like they're doing all this torture on her, and it's just like, again, a lot of psychological damage, killing her friends, because again she's able to see him in this otherworldly dreamlike area, escape, and she's getting pissed off, and she's slowly getting angrier and angrier as the film progresses until she can't stand it no more, and then that's when the transformation happens. And that film I was talking about, it wasn't Replaced, it was Rupture. I wanted to get that. It just now hit me. I was like, that's not Replaced, but that just hit me just now. But anyway, she just keeps going on and on until eventually she transforms into the wolf in the last 20 minutes, when like things really get basically piss her off, and like her friends are dead, and she thought she had a good friend, and then that turned against her, because he'd rather have faith instead of friendship, basically. And then the transformation for the werewolf, it's not the greatest transformation. I'll say that much, because you have the claws coming out of the hands, which is good. Not saying it's bad. And then you have like the writhing, just like the stretching, and then like you have the protruding eyebrows and the cheekbones, and the fangs in her. You have that for a while when she first transforms, and then that's when she goes after a couple other people. And then you have the major transformation, which when I looked at it at first, like, that's pretty cool. I mean, it's obviously a suit. I mean, it's not, you can see some of the stretch marks and a few things, but that wasn't, it's nothing neither here nor there. It's perfectly fine for what they were trying to go for. It's more, again, this is like what I thought of it as, is like, it's like the very first transformation. So you're not going to have everything yet. So this is like the first transformation. So it's like that's what I was thinking of, where it's just, you're hairless. And for some reason, I was sitting there like, why does this look familiar, this werewolf? For some reason, I was just like thinking through it. And then like, wait a second. And then I typed in on Google, like, a film. I'm like, yep, that's it. And then it reminded me of the creatures from The Descent, but like in a bestial form. Instead of cave monsters, it's like you have a little bit of a, cat nose and pointy ears. It looks similar to the creatures from The Descent. But again, that's just a minor thing that just popped up in my head when I was watching. Like, why does this look familiar to me? And it's that, again, there's some decent, okay effects when she does transform and starts attacking people. There's like, she bites an eye out. There's a neck throat rip, or, well, not rip, but she tears the throat out of her mouth. And overall, again, it's not a bad watch. It's just, again, very reliant on the dialogue and the sub stories and subplots of all the various characters, even some that don't really matter that much. But you have to get like Caleb in there. Like, they could have done a little bit more with Caleb, besides he's just a rogue, fucker, basically. He just goes around fucking everything, and he can't control himself. Well, it's technically a little bit of foreshadowing too, but still, it wasn't bad.
No, I
really don't want to say too much. Yeah, I mean, I really don't want to say too much, because I do kind of want people to check it out, and where it's still kind of new. I guess it's still kind of new. I don't really want to give too much away. I mean, we gave a little bit away, but there's still a lot more that we could touch upon, but I just don't want to give all of that away. I'll say it's, again, if you like slow burns and just like the eventual of like shit's about to go down, then it's a solid watch.
Yeah, no.
Like I said, it's very similar to those other films, like I mentioned, like Martyrs and Rupture, where they just like keep pushing and pushing and pushing. I mean, there could have been a little bit more torture, I guess, instead of just like having her go to the other world wherever she's at, and like, but again, they could have done more torture scenes like that, but they don't. They don't even do it for that much for the other two characters also in lockup. I mean, they beat up on one, they drown, like they submerge the other, what is her name? Monique's head underwater occasionally, but they don't really do that much with Jessica.
Yeah.
It's just a lot of, again, really heavy-handed on the dialogue.
Yeah, I mean, this is also one of those movies that you can't really, like, harp on too much because it's not a bad movie, and it doesn't have anything like, Three Blind Mice had, or,
No.
like, because it's a very straightforward film. Like, it's very, it knows where it wants to go, and it gets there. And it's a good movie, but because it's so dialogue heavy, there's not really many scenes to like focus on, because there's not a whole lot of like gore, or like we can be like, oh, some dude got his dick cut off, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it's, I feel like you said, I do also agree, like we might, if we keep talking about it, we're going to end up like just spoiling the entire movie. And I think this movie is one of those movies that people should see, because it was a good watch. It was a long watch, but it was it was really good. And I was not expecting it.
It's definitely one of those that you wouldn't, I mean, it's one of the better Tubi films, honestly. This is one of those, it's not, I wouldn't say it's a hidden gem, but it's a solid watch.
Yeah.
It's like, you don't go in there and it's not going to be like unnatural where you're just like, what is this? It's like, this one is just like, this is actually properly made. There's a good story. It makes sense. Yes, it's a little heavy-handed in the dialogue, but it does go, it goes to places where a lot of werewolf films, don't go, and that's like the psychological aspect. I mean, we bring it up a lot, but Michael Taylor Pritt's, werewolf movie, Night Howl, or how that's a psychological werewolf movie, and that one's, like, they don't really go down that aspect, or not aspect, but they don't have that aspect. They don't go down that route that often. And it's always cool to see, and especially, again, you take the sort of the martyrs approach to it, and like it kind of works for what they're trying to achieve. And again, it's not, the suit can be a lot to be desired. I mean, but again, if you take it at face value, where it's like her first transformation, she doesn't have all the hair, she's going to be hairless. I mean, it makes sense. So it's like it's one of those where you have to like put it in the back of your mind, like, okay, so we're not full on, hairy werewolf here. Where this is just, first transformation. Like there's like a little bit of a lore there that's like, it's not fully developed. It's not fully developed in giving you all the answers, basically. Where it's like it's there, but you have to piece it together in your head. So it's not like force feeding you everything. So it's like, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
And again, it's like, it's a solid little watch. Each character has their own rhyme and reason for doing what they're doing. And it just like, all of it just amalgamates to Jessica being pushed to her limit until she transforms. And it's pretty solid little watch. I mean, again, for the annals of Tubi, it's definitely, you can't really do that much better. Like there's some, again, we watch a lot of shit on Tubi, and this is one of those where it's like, you're actually going to be kind of like walking out of it like, yeah, that wasn't too bad. Like you're walked out like, yeah, that wasn't a waste of time.
Yeah. And that's what I was kind of worried about with this movie, was that it was going to be a waste of time, especially just like, judging the book by its cover. The poster kind of was just like, when I saw it, I was like, oh God, it's going to be one of those movies where it's just, stupid or not well put together or something. But no, I was like, okay, this is a pretty solid film.
Yeah, especially with the premise as well. Because that's pretty out there premise. Like, how is this going to work? And they like, it's straightforward, and like it works for the story. Like it's not cheesy, it's not campy, it is straight to the point, and I wouldn't say it's vicious, but it's just kind of in that realm of like almost being vicious in that just like mentality of
Yeah, I mean, I did want them to get a little bit more brutal with everything for the end.
That's the one thing I needed. I needed more torture scenes, or just like and just less of her going on these journeys in the mind. But again, you can't do that. I mean, I'm pretty sure that would have went against like some of the budget maybe, because it definitely seems like it was constrained in a few aspects. But I think they managed to make the story they wanted to present, and they did that. They pretty much accomplished that. And so I can't, again, if you have to sacrifice effects over a story, I'd rather you have a little bit more story than effects, like, because I felt like the effects were just there, just as a means, it's like, again, I wish there was a little bit more, but it just felt like it was mainly just character dialogue and like the characters themselves that push the story forward more than the torture,
Yeah. No, I agree. And, this movie, I mean, I'm glad we watched this, became a part, was on our list. It sounded interesting when you send it to me. And I'm glad it wasn't like last week where it wasn't an actual werewolf movie.
Yeah. No, it's like, again, like that one was just like blew their load 2 minutes in. Like now it's a vampire film. Like this one, like we don't get actual werewolf until the last 20 minutes, but you have that brooding, that forebrooding tone of like it's about to happen. Think she's gonna snap. She's having these spasms, and like it's just like all these things are, again, like you said, the psychological aspect of like she's gonna half her human form is losing control and this beast is coming out, and that's what until the eventual the bubble bursts and like all hell breaks loose for the priests.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's not a bad watch. Like I said, it's a solid watch. Again, you have to really go into it. You can't go into it half asleep or when you're wanting to go to bed. This is one of those you really have to, like, middle of the day, like you got your stuff, you're ready to relax and then give all your attention to the movie. This is being one of those where you have to give your attention to it.
Yeah. Well, I feel like we're just chasing our tails at this point.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, without giving too much away, and I don't want to do that. So if this sounds like a interesting watch, give it a check out, and then get back to us. We always like to hear other people's opinions on these films that we review, especially this one. Like, let us know what you thought of it, because again, I don't think that many people's really discussed it because it just came out not too long ago, just like a week or so. Because when the initial list that I brought came up, this wasn't even there, so it like literally just came out like a week. So hopefully this will get it some more buzz and some viewership. But with that, we are going to come to a close to this episode of Horror Night Oasis and our Fall of Beast Feast choice of First Moon. Ian, as always, it's great talking with you, buddy, and I hope you start feeling better and no more drinking milk and eating spicy noodles.
Hey.
As always, we appreciate everyone for listening, and we will see you next time as we continue on our Fall of Beast Feast on Horror Night Oasis.
Good night.